Hello, how are you, George? Good afternoon. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for having me, Miss Anna. Today has been a beautiful day. It's been nice and sunny, and I feel very excited
I'm
for being
glad.
here.
I'm happy. I'm very excited too. And let me tell everybody about George. George and I met probably a year ago or so. And since the moment we met, there was something that I felt this man's got something different. And we later on, we're going to talk about this a little later. But it has been a good journey for me because sometimes we need to listen to the stories George has to share today. He's got a wonderful story. He captured my heart immediately when I knew everything he has to share. And we're in a moment in life now that I think we all need to tell the good story about life. I mean, there's a lot of things. I know for some of you it's going to be difficult to understand because this is everything in English. But quiero saludar a todos, de todos modos, en español. George entiende el español, pero para él es mucho más cómodo hacerlo en inglés. Una disculpa para todos aquellos que no manejan bien el idioma, pero ya veremos la manera de ponerle subtítulos. Así que gracias a todos los que se vayan integrando. So as I was saying, I'm really excited of your story, George. What can you tell us about? Well, maybe we can talk a little bit about the way we met, and how is it that I got to know your story, and now I'm really gonna find out a lot about you today. But there's something special when you meet someone and you know this someone has a lot to share. So tell us about you.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Anna. And I agree 100%. Every day we walk by people that we don't ever have a chance to just stop and talk to. Sometimes we pass by each other without really realizing that we have a ability to be a blessing to somebody, or
That's
even to just share a smile, just like in one of your past cast when they about smiling and how simple and just programmed that is.
that's
Well,
right.
one day actually, when we met, I remember that uh, the night before, I was my wife and I were very deep in prayer the night before, and I remember asking God to allow for those people that have impacted our son's life uh, to be blessed. To keep them uh, well, to let them understand what their worth is, and to hopefully one day I could bless one of them as well. And out of nowhere, this is how God works. This is how amazing
Mhm.
God is that out of nowhere, you and I, our paths crossed. And it was really, it happened one day. And one day, um, I came across your book. And when I received your book and I started to read it, I said, this is exactly the same situation that our son Vinny, is experiencing right now. So it gave us a blueprint on how we are going to come out on top because
Right,
of the
right.
pioneer person that you are. And as I was taken back by that moment, all of a sudden you were standing in front of me, and I stood up and I shook your hand. And even right now, I'm close to tears because I was just so grateful and so blessed that you were able to allow for doctors. You said yes when others might have said no, and because of your yeses, our son uh, is running around and doesn't want to sit down.
That's
He's
awesome.
running.
And the great thing about this is that I didn't even know when we shook our hands and we were there, I didn't even know your story and about your son. And this is something I have to tell the audience that, well, you all know I have a very complex heart condition. George also has a son which has a very complex heart condition. But and you can hear him now and you can tell by his smile and everything. He's so full of love and God and everything. But George, was this always like that? I'm sure it
No,
was not. That's why this title is so strong. What's the purpose God has for an atheist? So you considered yourself an atheist at some point.
I did. My background, my father was in the military. He was actually in the military for 25 years.
Okay.
And my father's father was in the military for 21 years.
Okay.
Uh, I was in the military for 10 years. Uh, so with my military background, I saw all kinds of things in the military, things that really makes you question. It questions about makes you question about the creator. It makes you question about your purpose. It makes you question on faith, really in general.
Right.
When I got out the military, I went into college, and when I went into college, I went directly into biology. I was actually studying pre med, wanted to be a doctor, and so I started studying. And of course, science. It's all around us. Science is all around us, the medical technology, medical advancement, all of that is around
Mhm.
us daily. So I started to understand more and accept more the scientific approach to answers that we have around the world. Just like the Big Bang Theory, for example. How was the
Yes.
world created? Well, the Big Bang Theory. It's
Yeah.
kind of you really got to have a lot of faith if you think about it. And the Creator snapping his fingers and saying, "Let there be light."
That's it. Yeah.
And so my sister Anna, who happens to have your same name, Anna, she was heavy in the church, very, very heavy, and still is today. And she would always tell me, "George, God loves you. George, God has a purpose for you. George, God created the heavens and the earth." And for everything, every time that she had a God sentence for me, my rebuttal was like, "Okay, so what about Darwinism? What about evolution? We come from monkeys, right?" And so I'm that person, or I was that person, shamefully enough to admit right now that I didn't have time for God. I didn't have time
Okay.
to even accept accept it as a possibility.
Well, not
So
not because of everything you had gone through, all the suffering you had seen. I mean, this God doesn't fit in that place. I
it
I,
does
I understand.
absolutely, yeah. God in my life at the time, I felt like there wasn't there his hand wasn't on my life at that time, and man, I was wrong.
We're talking about how old were you about this time?
Well, I joined the
Teenager
military.
or a little older?
Yeah, I was, growing up in a military background with my father and everything. I moved from city to city, so I never established myself in a church. I never had
No roots,
friends,
no anything.
no roots, didn't grow any roots. So you know, um, at the age of 19, I joined the military at the age of 19. So
So you were young. Okay, you were very young.
yeah, so
And
I. Uh-huh.
what? No, no, no. Go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say. So it's just everything that led up to me joining the military actually prepped me to have a shell.
Right,
To not be allowed to be um, not allow for people to come with it inside of my circle. I had a circle around myself for protection purposes. I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to I didn't want to let my guard down.
right,
I always had my head in a rotation. I always had to move left and right and up and down and make sure that I have everything covered because that's the military way. And
right,
in the military, it's more about trusting the person next to you. And there's no time for prayer when somebody's shooting at you.
right, right. So one of the things that I've always, whenever I give these talks or shows or all of this, I always say that every single thing in our lives, every single thing has a purpose. And sometimes we think we're going through such difficult time, and I mean, once you understand it, how can this be a blessing? How can this be good? Well, only after coming from a very difficult situation, you understand the other side. Otherwise, because nobody can let you or can tell you now that you don't know what is suffering, that you don't know what is being alone, or that you don't know what it's being, how can you trust God? I mean, you come for that. You come from that. And that has a purpose for you to understand others. I mean, I'm absolutely sure that are going through things like this. So this makes you a person that not only has a strong story to share, but somebody who really I believe in you because I know where you're telling us where you come from, and that makes a big difference. George, what happened in your life that suddenly you turned to see God some way? I mean,
Well,
because everything has a purpose, but something had to happen that you
yeah.
say, "Oh, okay, what happened?"
Well, it took a long time, to be honest with you, because as
Yeah.
a child growing up, my mother and my father divorced. So now I'm seeing my mother struggling. I'm seeing my mother working at very minimum wages just to keep the lights on. You know, I could tell you that I've been in times where all we ate for like a month was fideo. Y solamente fideo. We didn't eat anything else because my mom couldn't afford anything else. But my mom was creative. You know, she would put like hot dogs and fideo,
Wow.
or or
Pizza
spam.
and fideo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And beans and always, frijoles. And the thing is that my mom would always pray over our food, and I would go through I go through the gestures, through the routine, through the, I hold my hands and hold hands with my family, but I always thought to myself, come on, I mean,
It was not in your
God,
heart. No.
God sees us suffering, right? So if God sees us, if there's a God and God sees us suffering, then why does He allow it? Why is it that our
I
lights got
agree.
turned off yesterday? Why is it that my mom my mom gets paid so little and doesn't have money for gas? Why is it that my mom has to apply for food stamps and then has to make tamales with the food stamps to sell them because we don't have enough?
To make more
Where is
money.
God in that? Where is God? She was by herself and she was raising three children that, you can tell by the size of me, I eat a lot, so we didn't have enough. Christmas always passed us. Why did Christmas always pass us? I didn't believe in Santa Claus after the age of, I think, 7, because we didn't have enough. I why other people
Santa
are
Claus
saying
never came home.
Santa Claus never came. And the magic wasn't there. The faith wasn't there for me. Now, my mother used to drag me to church, and I say drag because I didn't want to go. I thought it was a waste of time. I thought, Mom, you're trying to bestow these beliefs in me that you have, but you don't understand that I don't believe it myself, you know.
Right.
And there was some hard times. I After the military, I went to college and I got my degree, and again, I was married before, and the thing is that there's chains that our family allows that we can't break. We can't break without faith. We can't break without God. We can't break without truly understanding what those chains are. Well, a chain in my family history is I come from a line of people who marry and divorce and then remarry and then divorce, maybe even
Okay.
remarry the third time and divorce. And those chains just keep going. Well, I fell into that chain. I got married. I had a son, an older son. His name is Ethan. And then I divorced. And all of a sudden, when I was going through that part of my life where I divorced, I was ashamed of myself and the family that I had, right? Besides my wife at the time, my son, but my mother and my sisters here, I never told them. I never told them.
Oh,
Like I mentioned before, I drew a circle around myself, and I didn't want anybody. I didn't want to let my guard down. Well, I didn't have anything. All I had was my vehicle, the clothes in the trunk of my vehicle, and I had a job.
so you never told them that you got divorced?
I never told them. I was too
Okay.
ashamed.
Okay.
I I didn't have God in my heart enough or at all to where I couldn't even ask for help
That was
because it
like a
wasn't.
fate in your life, and you didn't want to go that through
Exactly.
that.
That's exactly right. So what I would do is I would I had a gym membership and I was paying for a gym membership. And I said, well, you know what? I don't need anything. I don't need anybody. I don't need them. I don't need this. And I certainly don't need God. So I don't need anything. So I got this. I'm in control. I know how to take care of it. So what I was doing is I would wake up. I would wake up in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and I would go to the gym and I would work out in the gym for about an hour, hour and a half. I would take a shower, get ready for work, and then I would drive from where I live to my work, which is about 45 minutes away. I would commute. And then I would go to work and I'll put in 8 or 9 hours of work. I would leave work, drive back to the gym and work out until 10, 11 o'clock until they closed the gym. And I would take a shower again. Then I would go into my car and then I would drive to Walmart and I would park
Wow.
underneath the tree at Walmart and I would roll up my windows and I would fall asleep. This one time, I'll never forget it. The security that works Walmart at night, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning or so. He comes over and he knocks on the window. He's like, "Sir, you can't be sleeping here, sir. You can't." And without even thinking about it, I reacted. I lowered my window and I said, "I'm not sleeping here. My sister's working inside and I'm her ride home. So when she's out, then I'll leave." And you know what the guy said? He said,
What?
"Well, only God knows if you're telling the truth." And that's what he said.
Wow.
At that moment, he said that. Only God knows if you're telling the truth. And I said, "Yeah." And then he let me be. I was woken up because he knocked on the window. And this is the honest truth. At that moment, after he left, I actually closed my eyes again. I put my arms like this. I closed my eyes and I said, "Okay, oh God, I mean, okay, so if you are for real, if you are true, then help me. Then do something for me because I'm homeless. I'm homeless." This happened for 36 days. 36
Wow.
days I lived out of my car for 36 days.
More
And
than a month. Wow.
when I crossed my arms and I said, "God, well, if you're real, people say that all the time. Well, if you're
Yeah,
real,
you're just trying to prove God. I mean, just give me a signal, give me a
give me
sign.
a sign." Yeah. And that's, it's typical of us because our faith isn't strong enough to understand that. So I did
Right.
the same thing. I'm guilty. And I did that. And then I fell back to sleep. Well, that morning, I woke up about an hour and a half later. I went to the gym, my same routine, went to my gym, worked out, took a shower, drove to work, worked my 8 hour, 10-hour shifts at work. And when I was coming out of work, I felt really tired. I felt really tired when I came out of work. So I said, "Oh man, I feel really tired. I'm probably not going to go to the gym tonight. I'm not going to go to the gym tonight." So I drove down this road, and there was this church that had a sign up that said, uh, "Come and join us. Come and join us." And I remember when I was passing the church, I remember I felt like a pull, like something in my stomach, my gut said, "Hey, turn in here." Something was telling me, but I ignored it and I went to the gym. I worked out and everything, the same routine. Went back to the Walmart, parked my car, fell asleep. Next morning, woke up, went to the gym again. I was extremely tired. I almost overslept. It's very uncomfortable to sleep in a car. It's very uncomfortable,
I must
and
imagine, yes.
it is. And so when I left the gym to drive to work, mind you, I would go into work about 7:15 in the morning. Around seven, it had to be around 7:2, 7:3 in the morning. I remember it was in December, and it was December the 7th. It was December the 7th. And I remember that I was driving down this road, and I was only probably like 2 blocks away from my work when my life stopped. Right there, it
Mhm.
stopped. I I wake up, everything goes black, and I wake up. And when I wake up, I'm coughing, and I'm in pain, and I'm coughing, and I cough, and I look at my hands because I want to cover my mouth to cough. I look at my hands, and there's blood all over my hands. And I'm looking around, and there's this person. He's like, sir, who do we call? Who do we call? I'm like, what? I, what are you talking about? What's going on? He said, sir, you've been in an accident. Who do we
Oh,
call?
God.
And I said, well, call 911. I remember saying, call 911. And then he looked at me and he said, sir, we're the paramedics. We're 911. Who do we call to notify? And at that time,
Wow.
I didn't have anybody to call. I couldn't call my mom. I couldn't call my sister. The only number that came into my mind was the number to my gym. That was the only number. And they called my gym, and my gym vouched for me and said, yes, we know George. He was just here this morning. And from there, they made contact with my family. And I was in a hospital.
So you were driving, you went to the gym, and coming back, you don't know what happened.
I don't know what.
You just blacked out.
I blacked out. I was in an accident with another vehicle. They said I was only going like 30 miles per hour. It wasn't anything that was going to be major, but I was really hurt in that accident to where I ended up with a collapsed lung. I had
Lord.
I had a bruised orifical bone in my cheek. My shoulder rotator cuff was slightly torn. My hip was I had a fractured hip. It was really bad, and the doctors couldn't understand it. As a matter of fact, the medical coroner came in and said, I don't know how you survived that accident. He came in and he told me this, and my mom was there, my sister was there. Mind you, when my mom found out, my sisters found out, they're like, what? We just found out that you're not even at home. Where are you living? What are you doing? And I, with the bruised face and the, blood everywhere, I told them I've been living in my car. And everything that they said, the police officer said that like it looks like you were living in your car. You have all your clothes were everywhere in the back seat because of the accident. And I said, yeah, I was living in my car. So I had to confess to that, right? And but the coroner said that the way that the accident was, all the pressure of the accident was absorbed by my seat where I was sitting. On top of me, everything it buckled down. So the front tire and the back tire, they locked up in the accident, and they wouldn't allow the car to move. And it's an anti-lock vehicle, so that's impossible.
Wow.
They couldn't believe it. But the car in the middle is like this, it bowed down. So all that pressure came right down on top of me. And the doctor said, it's a miracle that you're alive, because technically speaking, instead of having a collapsed lung and a bruised face, you should have had 2 punctured lungs, and you should have died while choking on your blood. That's what he told me. And I started crying. I couldn't believe it. And it was
What
at that
came
moment.
to your mind there in that moment? Would you see yourself so vulnerable, so that, because it's exposing everything. You were lying to your family. I mean, at least not telling the truth. You were doing things that nobody knew about. There's a moment in which now you open your heart, because everybody knows now what I've been trying to hide.
Yeah.
And you're in a very vulnerable situation. What happens in your mind and heart?
I felt like I was living a lie. I felt like I I I brought this upon myself for not really understanding that we're not alone. No matter how bad and hard it is, if we allow ourselves to be lied to, you know, and we ourselves could lie to ourselves,
Right.
you know, right? And if we accept that, then we only dig ourselves deeper. We dig ourselves deeper. So when I had to come out to my family and tell them,
This is
been
what.
lying, yeah, I did. the first thing that my sister Anna did is she said, well, that goes to show you that God has a purpose for you. This is God reaching to you at this moment right now. God is telling you, okay, you've tried it your way for 30 plus years. Now it's my turn. Now let me show you what your purpose is. You denied me. You didn't believe in me. You said I wasn't true, but yet you prayed and you reached out to me. So now I'm reaching out to you.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened at that moment.
Wow.
Exactly what happened at that moment.
And that's a beautiful, beautiful picture of you. And did you, in some way, at that moment, recognize there's got to be, for example, people call, oh, that's a coincidence that I didn't die. You know, like we say in Spanish, it's a pura casualidad. But in that moment, when was the moment in which you said, well, somebody's really reaching for me, and this, what we call miracles, are really blessings that come from heaven. What was the moment in which George said, yeah, okay, there's something more?
You know, that's a great question, because what happened is that, remember when I just said right now that I went down this road and I saw a church and I felt like,
Right.
you know, something was telling me to go in, but I just ignored it and went by. Well, fast forward, I was at the hospital for like 2 days at the hospital. My sister Anna let me borrow her little Ford Fiesta. It's a little car. And I look really silly because I'm a big guy. So I look really silly in this car. And I remember I was driving down that same road, but I was coming at an opposite direction. The first time I drove down that road, I was heading south on the road, and
Okay.
the church was on my left-hand side. But now I was driving north. I was going up.
So it's in your right hand side.
That's
Okay.
to my right-hand side, right? So it flashed the light that said, join us today. And there was cars in the parking lot. So I just put the blinker and turned inside. When I turned inside to the church, I remember parking, and I remember saying to myself, well, let's find out. Let's see what's going on. And I walked in, and I remember that they were having worship at the time, right? So the lights were kind of dim, and the worship leader was in the front, and he was singing, and he was saying he was about to finish the worship song at the time when an usher walks up to me. And it's so loud because the music's it's so great, and it's inspiring. The music's going at the usher. Then he looked at me and he waved at me, and then he started doing this like, and I was like, what? I can't hear you. And then he's like, how many? And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. So he got really close to me, and he said, are you alone? Because he's trying to find seats for me, and if I had
Yes.
somebody with me, right? But when he said, are you alone? I right away, without thinking, I said, no, I'm with Christ.
Wow.
And when I said that, I kind of said it jokingly, but when I said that, he smiled. He said, I know where I'm going to sit you. And he took me to the front. So I was sitting in the front where the pastors were going to sit, you know, where the pastors were sitting, where the worship group sits down afterwards. I was sitting there in the front. And when I was sitting in the front, as soon as I got to the chair, the worship group started singing "Moving Forward." It's a beautiful song. It talks about how the old is in the past, and it's time to move forward. And when that song came out, whew, you know,
You really got touched.
that's when I knew.
Right.
That right there, that moment.
Oh, George, that's
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you for sharing.
that moment.
That's the moment he reached. And
That's Mhm.
wow. Well, that's just such an inspiring story, George, because this is not a story that we see in the movies and that we just find that somebody, you really had it. And for me, that's very inspiring, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have been in a very dark place like you were then,
Yeah.
in a very difficult place where you don't see the way out. But you see, you heard. I always say this: we need to listen to ourselves. There's a lot of wisdom inside, and a little voice told you stop here. You need to
Right.
stop. It was the first time, and then the second time, you said, "Okay, I'll
Right.
stop."
I'll stop.
And wow, so after that, you said, "Okay, I want to do this," and something happened in your life. You were not married by then? You were
No,
just
no, I wasn't.
you were with Christ, but you had no wife.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay, that's you're
and
not
that was
alone.
and that was okay because honestly, I wasn't looking. I
That's
was too
right.
involved and I wasn't looking.
And do you think after this, yours, because I assume that you started finding out more and trying to get to know your spiritual life and what did you believe in and everything. The decisions that came after that, did they were they different from what you would have chosen before that moment?
Absolutely. I started to really understand that my way in the past was flawed, and my decisions, uh, smart or not, kept me from actually growing as a person. It
Right.
kept me from, we're blessed with intellect. We're blessed with loving, with intellect, but at the same time, our intellect can cause barriers that we don't even know of
That's right.
because sometimes we think we're too smart. We
We
can't
think we
learn
know everything and we can handle everything with no
absolutely
help. Yeah.
with no help. So my perspective after that was I was 100% empty. I was 100% empty because when I prayed at that parking lot, when the security knocked on my door and I said, "Oh God, if you are God,
If you do
well
exist,
then,
show me.
well, yeah." And God's not that type of person that's gonna, he's not gonna put up a sign. He's not gonna do it. He's gonna talk to you subtly, like a feeling like, "Ooh, you know what? I should stop here at this church." But
That's it.
you
That's it.
might not accept it. Yeah, you won't accept it.
And
You
you
move
listen.
on, and sometimes we don't listen, right?
Right.
But
But
when we
the
do
thing
listen,
is, the thing here is like for everybody to understand the way I see things and you, is that there's always this voice telling you things. But
yeah,
definitely sometimes you just don't want to hear, don't want to listen, and you just go on with your life. But then he
yeah,
knocks again. Hello, I'm right here. So
yeah,
for you, that crash was a big knock. Was an
oh yeah.
wow, that was a shocking moment. But the good thing, how much after that did you stop in that church? How long? How long
Oh,
after that?
you know what? Every
After
day,
no, I mean after the accident.
Mhm.
How much time did it pass before you went to this church that you stopped?
Oh no,
How long has it been?
actually, I was in a hospital for a week and 3 days. I was in the hospital for
Okay,
a week and 3 days. I got out of the hospital on the second day that I was out of the hospital.
you went there.
So yeah,
Wow.
is when I was traveling down that road again, and
So
that's
tell
where.
us, George, how did you meet this beautiful lady,
Oh
Stacy?
yeah, Stacy. She. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. Uh, God talks to you very subtly, right? And we talked about that just now. Uh,
Yes.
and this one time, he said, "Psst, look up. There she is." That's what he said to me. God said, "Psst, look up, George. There she is." And I remember I was looking down, and then I looked up, and I just saw her, and I was like, "Hi." Hi. you know
You are the one.
I was captivated, and she'll tell you when we first met. um I was dressed up because I was teaching at the time, and when we first met, she actually just got back from playing volleyball, and so her hair was everywhere, and she didn't have on any makeup, and She was a little bit sweaty, you know,
As natural as it can be.
as natural as, yeah, she was definitely Eve, you know, in the garden for me. And she just was, she was there waiting.
I
And
don't know
I,
what's happening here. Hold on.
okay,
There.
there you go.
Okay.
And, and I remember that within the first, like, maybe within the first minute of our conversation together, as I introduced myself, you know, and asked her, you know, if I could help her and stuff like that. Within the first minute of my conversation, um, I had that same pull that I had when God was guiding me into the church. And I had the same pull. I felt that same, you know, right in my stomach that said, okay.
So would you consider that definitely meeting her, of course, it was a blessing, but made your decisions different than before you have, I mean, you were ready for a relation like this with Stacy, right? I mean, it would have it's different when you make a decision after knowing or after having God in your life and feeling this blessed, and then you know that this is another blessing, right?
Oh, absolutely. And she'll tell you, she'll, you know, well, you know what, I'll tell you. um, you know, the line of work that I do is very stressful because I have I, I'm in a position that I have to, I look over 29, 30 employees. There's 3 buildings that I overlook, and there's quotas I got to meet. I work with million dollars of budget, you know, and I got to
Right.
spend money here and save money there, and I'm, you know, it's really stressful. But every time that I I shy away from being the the man with the servant heart for her, she reminds me. She reminds me all the time, and she's very patient. And you know, the Bible says love is patient. You know,
That's right. Yes.
and she is. She's very patient, and she brings me back. She completes me as a person who endlessly wants to serve. And
Wow.
yeah.
How long have you been married to Stacy, George?
You know what? Together, we've been together now. If I get this wrong, she's gonna hit me. No, she's not gonna hit
Okay,
me.
so it's been many years.
Oh yeah, no,
Several
yeah,
years.
yeah, no, it's been. You know what? When you when you find that person and you're with that person, time
You feel
st-
that
stand,
everything you've gone through is with her, right?
yeah, and time stands still.
Yes, that's
Time
right.
stands still. Yeah,
What has happened to me is that when you're so happy with someone, it's like if everything that has been good in your life,
yeah,
in your mind, it's like if it had been with her, with this person. I don't know
yeah.
why this has happened to a lot of people. Now, tell us, George. Tell me about this young, beautiful young boy. Tell me about him.
This is uh, this is our son, Mr. Vincent Michael, and
Okay.
Vincent is he is special. He is a blessing from God. Vincent allows my wife and I to understand how precious life is, and how much we need faith. You know, every day we need faith. It, you know, when you're going to work and the light's red and you're looking at your watch and you're like, oh, I'm going to be late. Have faith. Don't rush it. You're going to
All
get
right.
into trouble, into an accident. Don't rush it. Have faith. Okay. Our son, when he was born, uh, was airlifted to a special hospital in San Antonio, Texas. And he was airlifted because he was born with something called heterotaxy syndrome. So what
Okay.
happens? Yeah, what happens is that your heart, everybody's heart has 4 chambers. It has 4 chambers. It has 2 on the left and 2 on the right. Now your chambers, there he is, right there. Your four
Mm-hmm.
chambers have special reason. On the uh, on the right side of your heart, your 4 chambers. are used to bring in deoxygenated blood. It brings in deoxygenated blood from your body. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through a process where it leaves the bottom chamber, which is known as your ventricle. Okay. It leaves that ventricle chamber and that blood goes to the lungs. And in the lungs, it picks up oxygen. And
Right.
then it brings it back to the heart and it brings it on the left side of the heart. So it goes to the left top atria, and then it goes down the bicuspid valve, then it goes into your left ventricle, and it's oxygen, it's rich oxygenated life blood, and then from there it goes back to the body. Well, our son, when he was born with an undeveloped left side. That means that his oxygen and deoxygenated blood were mixing, and that caused what's his O2, his oxygen. It causes O2 saturation to be very low. It was in the 70s.
Right.
His mouth was purple. His fingertips were purple. Very lethargic. Couldn't do a lot because he didn't have that rich oxygen in his body. He couldn't get it. It was just mixing and mixing and mixing. So,
I can understand your son very well.
oh yeah.
Not you, your son.
No, I know, because that's the same thing that you went through as a child,
That
right?
everything was mixed. Very, 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 very difficult because there's a lot of limitations. When he's 2 years old now. I mean, here, right? You were telling me.
There, yeah, in that picture, he's two. Yeah, he's two.
Okay. And what happened? I mean, what was in your heart and mind, and yours and Stacy? Because how do you think you took things after this young little boy was born? How did you take these things? How was it different after all this knowing God? And do you think you approached things in a very different way than when you were, like, you called yourself an atheist? Do you
Yeah.
think
Well,
how would you have reacted if
there
God
was,
was not were not in your life by that moment?
if you know what, if I didn't have
Everything
God,
happens in a perfect moment.
that's right. And you know what, that was a perfect. That if there was ever a perfect time for me to question again and to say, you see, I knew it. There was no God. Because why are we
Yeah.
going through this? I mean, why would he let this happen? You know, and my wife and I, we talked. We always talk about what is happening and why. And you can see in this picture right here, you can see that he's got that scar right down his chest right there.
Right.
That was from his first major operation. But
Wow.
we uh, we could have relapsed. I could have relapsed. This picture right here, he just got his Fontan done.
Wow.
That was the last operation. He was actually he's 5 years old in this picture, right here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's 5 years old. But
But you
I
see, I'm sorry to show those pictures, but I think it shows
no,
everybody what you were going through. It's not easy to see a son going through that. Mostly, like you said, it was the best way to say, if God existed, this would have never happened. How
yeah,
did you take things? How did you handle them with Stacy?
it was difficult, and it was more difficult for me, I believe, because the thing is that when I see that happening, and here's this life that is just starting off, right, and then um, they got to go through that pain.
Right.
He's got on the back of his hand, he's got track marks from all the time he was stuck with a needle.
Oh God, yeah.
He's terrified of needles because everything that has happened to him. It just
It's terrible. Yeah.
it gives you an opportunity to say, okay, I'm done. This is not what God wanted. If there is a God, that's not what He wants.
I
He
didn't
wants,
sign for this. I didn't sign for this. This
yeah,
is
yeah,
enough.
exactly.
Yeah.
Where are you, God? Where are you? But no, there was no time for that, because the reason why is because you know we got to understand something, all of us together. Each and every one of us, we have a purpose, no matter how long our life is here on earth.
Right.
no matter how much time we have. We're blessed with the time that we have. When our children, if our children goes through pain and suffering, we are their parents to comfort them. We need to aid them through that. We need to show them that with that comes something out of it. And the thing is that for Stacy and I, we understood that what Vinny is going through, it's because it's God's purpose for him that we may not have a definition for it right now, but we know
Right.
it will come. When I first met you, and when I read up on what you have gone through in your life, and being so brave and to allow doctors to pioneer the same exact medical surgery that my
Surgery.
son had. You see, if you didn't say yes, then the doctors wouldn't have that intellect. They wouldn't have that ability. They wouldn't have that knowledge. So that now my son, our son right now, he's running around and dancing, and his O2 levels are at 90, 97, I think it was last time that
Wow.
we had it checked. And he's 5 years old, going to be 6 in November. And
Wow.
he's full of life because your life, Miss Anna.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I mean, for people that are listening to us here, is that, like George said, I got the same Fontan surgery. And of course, I was the oldest patient on earth that had, well, at least that we know of, that this surgery had ever been done in an adult. Like, I was 24 years old the first time. And it was just a made up. I mean, like un invento. How do you say that, George? O sea, they
Oh,
made it from scratch. It was
yeah.
just like, because it's very difficult to do this on an adult than to do it on a child. Everything is different inside. Everything is it doesn't work the same way as in a child, which is it recovers faster or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then they had to do another one. 18 years later was my second Fontan, which was the one probably your son got. It's very similar to what your son's got, but I got this at 43. So
Uh-huh.
yes, it was just like something. But you know, George, I really appreciate you thanking me for this, because I always say doctors, and I know you think about this the same way, that thanks to doctors like your sons and mine, there's people like your son and me alive. So the purpose of these doctors, of human beings wanting to follow this, listening in your heart and mind, that I want to say, I mean, I want to help lives. I want to save people's lives. These doctors for me are like angels on earth,
Yeah,
because they
amen.
listen to this and they answer to this call. And now your son and me are alive, and we're jumping and running and singing and all those things that nobody expected us to be able to do.
That's true. You
That's
know,
amazing.
God, a lot of people say this. They say, God never gives you anything you can't handle.
That's
You've
right.
heard that, right?
First Corinthians 10:13.
Yeah.
That's
God,
that's the one. I know it by heart.
yes, ma'am. God never gives you anything that you can't handle. As an
Right.
atheist, uh, I I used
Wow.
to say, I used to say, no, God gives you way too much. That's why people go crazy. That's why
Much
people
more than you can handle, right?
much more, right? And I was talking to a pastor, Pastor Mike, and he's so a long time ago, and I said, "Hey, Pastor Mike, so what do you think? Do you think God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, or because I think He gives you too much. He gives you, and we've come to this conclusion. See, God gives you, He will give you things that you can't handle, and the reason why is because He wants to remind you on we need to have union, we need to have fellowship, we need to reach out to family, we need to have prayer, we need to have Miss Anna come on and talk, and provide this information for people who don't have it. maybe you have a story, somebody out there that's seeing this today, maybe they feel like God has given me way too much, I can't handle this. And the truth is, yeah, he will sometimes, and the only reason why, because he wants to remind you on how great he is, because you need to go back to that. You need to go back and ask for that. You know, we there's this story that says there's a story that says there was this little girl who had on the same dress, and she comes from a poor family. She would go to school, and she had on the same dress, and the school the classmates would make fun of her and say, "Oh, you have on the same dress all the time. You never wear anything else because your family's too poor." She goes home, and her father sees that she's a little down, and she said, "Well, what's going on, mija? Why do you feel so sad?" "Well, I get picked on in school because I wear the same dress all the time." Well, there's one Saturday, they're walking down the mall, and she's holding her father's hand, and her father's leading her, right? And she stops. And she says, "Papa, look." And she points to a dress in the window. And when she points to that dress in the window, her father looks at her and says, "Do you like that dress?" And she looks at her papa and she says, "See, papa, I like that dress." And he says, "Well, you know what? On Friday, I get paid and I'm going to buy you that dress." And she's happy. Well, here comes Monday. It's Monday, right? So she has a whole week before she gets the dress, and she's happy, and she's at school, and she has on her old dress, and she's turning around. She's like, "Ah, yeah." She's very happy. In the school, her classmates look at her and says, "Well, why are you so happy?" And she
What
said,
changed?
"Because I have a new dress. Because I have a new dress." And they look at her and they're like, "You don't have a new dress. You got the same dress on. Come look at you. So you don't have a new dress on." And she's like, "Yes, I have a new dress. I have a new dress. I have a new dress." And she's anticipating that
The
dress,
blessing, the blessing, yeah.
the blessing, because she has the faith. She believes in her father, and her father's going to answer that prayer.
Wow,
And
that's a
that's what
beautiful story.
that's us. We Stacy and I, we know that Vinny is going to be okay, and we know that his life here on earth with us, if it's short, we're going to accept it. We're going to grieve because we love him, but we're going to accept it because we know that his story, like your story, Miss Anna, is one that will be heard and will touch other people, and the purpose for him as well as you are pretty much defined.
And you touched something that I really, really, really believe that there's there's not only a purpose, but there's every single thing that we have been blessed that we, if even though if it's very difficult, acceptance, this word acceptance, for me makes the whole difference. Because there's no way, after you accept things, you give an opportunity to have the option to make changes. If you are denying and denying and denying your situation or whatever's happening, you don't give space for new things, like you said.
Yeah.
How can you leave space for something new if you're just uh, like they say, you can't stop thinking about all the negative things? How can positive things come to your life? You don't
That's
do you don't even let your mind be positive in any way. So I believe that this word, which is acceptance, is not being what's the word, conformista. What's the word with that? It's not.
confirmation or
Yeah, I
being.
mean, it's not for you just to uh, well, like, okay, there's no other way, I'll accept this, but not in a way of a loser,
Oh
but in a
yes,
way, conformismo. I don't know how it's a real word in English, but it's just like you don't want to just say, well, this is what I got and ni modo. No,
yeah,
I got this, but with no suffering, I'm going to get the best out of this. You have seen this man. I love this man, David, I think it's his name. He doesn't have
yeah,
arms and he doesn't have legs. And he's
yes,
such a happy man. He's
yeah.
married. He's got
He's
two
married.
children.
The
He's got
children,
two
yeah,
children. Yeah. So what's the limit is always in your mind and in your heart and in your faith. So what do you believe? Like this little girl, she believed in daddy, and daddy answered, I'm sure. And sometimes one of the things I've always said, George, is that if God has not answered yet, it's because it's not the best time. It's not that he's not listening. It's not that he doesn't want to answer. It's just that maybe your answer is not the best for you. And the only way you can think about this is if you trust him. Otherwise, you just be denying and you'll be, how do you say, repelando. You
Yeah.
just, you'll just
I,
be like finding and whining over everything that's negative. Instead of saying, okay, I trust you. Maybe I have to wait a whole week. Maybe I have to wait a whole month, but I know he has already listened to me,
yeah.
just like your son and I. George, before, because we're almost about an hour, I want to
Yeah.
read. People are here writing
Yes.
down messages, and well, it's been Ana Paula, my daughter. She says, hello, everybody. Tete, she's also here just saying hi, 100%, she says.
Thank you.
And then an inspired story, thank you so much. Claudia, well, you have people in Spanish too. Un abrazo grande. She's a very, very good friend. Tete says inspiring story. And thank you for sharing, George.
You're
And
welcome.
then Fernanda Leal, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Tete again, what a beautiful boy. Yes,
Thank you.
he definitely is. And then Elizabeth Ramos says here, al menos 2 meses she had shock anafiláctico,
Oh,
angina de pecho y los últimos 10 días sin respirar por mi cuenta y por el COVID. Okay, she had a COVID situation.
oh,
Únicamente puedo decir voluntad de vivir and against all odds, she will make it. And she's
amen.
here. And then she
Amen.
says, somos afortunados. Yes, we're blessed of being and of being here, being ourselves. Luli Gomez also, she sends a lot of heart. And then Elizabeth, a papá y a Nene envió un abrazo. Of course, you and your little boy.
Yes.
El amor sea su soporte, and I'm sure it is.
Amen.
Then she also says, no, ni modo. It's not ni modo. We have to accept it without whining, without feeling like if this, I don't know, for me, and I know you believe like that because you being a father makes me understand more, even more, my mother and father. They went through a lot, and they went through a lot in a time that there was no hope.
That's right.
Your son was son in a time that at least there was hope, there was surgeries being done, there was something. At my time, they just told my parents, well, she's not going to make it. Probably 8 or 9 years, and that's it, because there's no solution. And even at that moment, and I want to tell you this story, I remember that I was probably 8 or 9 years old, that I said, but doctors, I didn't like what doctors said. And then he said, well, that's what doctors say, that's a prognosis.
Yeah.
But what if God has another plan?
That's right.
What if God had another plan? And I stuck to that plan. And I said, yes, God might have another plan. This is what doctors say. So for me, it has made a whole difference having parents that had faith,
That's right.
parents that made me understand that there's always something else besides science and besides what facts show.
Yeah.
And well, this is me here, and this is your son here, and this is probably because uh, we believed that things would be different. There's Pamela Lomana, a very good friend. She was my nurse when I was in
Oh,
intensive care, about to die. She was a friend that for me, she's an angel. Thanks for sharing. Awesome. She's such a beautiful friend that she shared with me probably the darkest moments in my life when I was just really in intensive care about to die. She was my nurse for, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 weeks.
wow.
And there's a video I shared with her, and tells her side of the story. And for me, having friends like her, having nurses, having doctors, having family, having a wife, having people that share your same belief and thoughts, that's what makes us strong.
Yeah.
George, I would love for you to give us a last message. What would you like to tell the audience, people that are listening now and that will listen later on?
Well, it's actually what you just said right now. when you have that group, see when I thought about me and I drew a circle around myself only, I didn't let people come in.
Right.
So I didn't experience love. I not in that way. My group was really small. It was one person. It was myself. So
Right.
if I could leave here, like if I could leave everybody with one thing, it is make your group bigger. Allow people to come into your lives. Allow for you, instead of walking by that person and not saying good morning or not sharing a smile, do that for somebody, because that's going to change their life as much as it's going to change yours. Every day, take time to love. Every day, love little things like the air that we breathe. Give thanks to the people that you have in your life. Love every day. Allow yourself for intellect. Allow yourself to learn other things. Allow yourself to broaden your horizon.
Right.
Love, intellect, always have faith. Faith, it comes in a mustard seed, okay? As small as a mustard seed. If you have that small faith, you
Semilla
have,
de mostaza. That's right.
that's right, you have faith. And lastly, encourage. Encourage others to speak, encourage them to be a part of something, encourage them to understand what their purpose is if they don't know it. Because if you love, if you seek intellect, if you have faith, and if you encourage, then really you have life.
Wow.
So
That's beautiful, George. Thank you.
live,
Let me put you here. Put it back again, please. We have to listen to see this. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful time with you. Thank you
thank
for
you.
sharing this beautiful and inspiring story.
Well,
We
thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much. And I'm sure there's a lot that people are going to talk about. We will be looking at our media and messages, and I'm sure we will answer. And thank you, George. Thank you once again, because the world needs more people like you sharing beautiful stories like this.
With
Thank
people
you
like
so
you.
much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
People like
Adios.
us, maybe. See you
Adios.
later. Okay.
Adios.
See you.
Muchas
See you.
gracias.
See you later.
We'll see you.
Esta corazón no para de latir, no paran estas ganas